A very good morning. It's just past 10 by the clock. We are back again with another edition of News on the Hour. This is your one-stop show when it comes to news from India and the world. Remember, we are the most trusted news channel when it comes to delivering news for you, and we are the final word when it comes to news in India. I am Anil Thomas. Let's get started this Saturday morning with the top headlines at the top of this hour. Nation pays homage to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, on his 152nd birth anniversary. President, Vice President and Prime Minister pay floral tributes to Gandhiji at Rajghat. PM says his noble principles are globally relevant and give strength to millions. Series of functions including Sarvadharma Prarthana Sabha being organized to mark the occasion. Nation remembers second Prime Minister of the country, Lal Bahadur Shastri, on his 118th birth anniversary. President, Vice President and Prime Minister pay floral tributes at Vijay Ghat. PM says Shastriji's life based on values and principles will always remain a source of inspiration for the countrymen. International Day of Non-Violence being observed across the globe to pay tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls for peace for building a better future for all. In an interview with a weekly magazine, Prime Minister Narendra Modi says government is actively focusing on preventive health care. Says Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission will enhance access to health care for the poor, boost innovation and make treatments seamless across geographies. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to interact with Gram Panchayats and Pani Samitis village water and sanitation committees on Jal Jeevan Mission via video conferencing. PM to launch the Jal Jeevan Mission app and Rashtriya Jal Jeevan Kosh. Nationwide Gram Sabhas on Jal Jeevan Mission will also take place during the day. Prime Minister addresses Dubai Expo 2020, gives a clarion call to investors to come and invest in India, says India is a land of opportunities in various fields, stresses India offers maximum growth in scale, ambition and outcome. Union Minister Piyush Goyal inaugurates Indian Pavilion. In sports, IPL 2021, Punjab beat Kolkata Knight Riders. Kolkata by 5 wickets in a last over thriller, jumps to number 5 in the points table. Well, those were the headlines at the top of this hour. Now for the stories in detail, starting first up with Gandhi Jayanthi today and the nation paying homage to Mahatma Gandhi on his 152nd birth anniversary. The birth anniversary of the father of the nation. Gandhi Jayanthi is also the occasion that coincides with this year with the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which was inaugurated on March 12 this year by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the 91st anniversary of a significant event in Gandhiji's life, the Dhandi March. The march had a key role in furthering the spirit of pride and Atmanirbharta among Indian people. The day is also celebrated as International Day of Non-Violence every year to honor Mahatma Gandhi's path of ahimsa during the Indian freedom struggle. A series of functions have been organized across the country and by Indian missions abroad on the occasion of Gandhi Jayanthi. President Ramnath Kovind paid floral tributes to Mahatma Gandhi at Rajghat in the national capital on his 152nd birth anniversary.
तेनु दर्शन करता मणि नरसयो तेनु दर्शन करता उड़े को तेरा आया रे वैष्णव जन तो पेन कहिए पीड़ पराई जान रे पर दुख
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu also reached Rajghat today morning and paid tributes to Bapu on his birth anniversary. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also paid floral tributes to the father of the nation at Rajghat in the national capital this morning. Earlier, in a tweet, he said that Gandhiji's noble principles are globally relevant and give strength to millions. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla also paid floral tributes to Mahatma Gandhi on his 152nd birth anniversary. An interfaith prayer meeting was also organized at Rajghat to pay tribute to Mahatma Gandhi on his birth anniversary.
वे जो धार्मिकता के कारण अत्याचार सहते हैं, स्वर्गराज उन्हीं का है। तुम पृथ्वी के नमक हो।
जमीअन सुम्मस्तवा इलस्समाइ फसव्वाहुन्ना सबअ समा
गणेशाय वक्रतुंड महाकाय गणेशाय नमो नमः। ओम नमो भगवते सूर्यदेवाय आदिदेव नमस्तुभ्यं प्रसीद मम भास्कर दिवा।
Prayer meeting was held at Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad in Gujarat to observe the 152nd birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Sabarmati Ashram was Bapu's home, where he stayed for several years before finally proceeding for a march to Dhandi to break the salt law on the 12th of March 1930. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has also paid tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. In a tweet, he said, and I quote, "Hatred, division and conflict have had their day. It is time to usher in a new era of peace, trust and tolerance. On this International Day of Non-Violence, Gandhiji's birthday, let's heed his message of peace and commit to building a better future for all." Nation also remembers independent India's second Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri on his 118th birth anniversary today. His slogan, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, still etches in our minds. He had his own way of connecting with common people, and his legacy is still remembered by millions of Indians. He promoted several revolutions such as the White and Green Revolution. The White Revolution led to an increase in milk and the Green Revolution led to an increase in food grain production. Lal Bahadur Shastri was deeply influenced by the political teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. President Ramnath Kovind paid floral tributes to Lal Bahadur Shastri at Vijay Ghat in New Delhi on his 118th birth anniversary. Vice President also reached Vijay Ghat this morning to offer floral tributes to the former Prime Minister of India, Lal Bahadur Shastri, on his 118th birth anniversary. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also paid floral tributes to Lal Bahadur Shastri ji. Earlier in a tweet, he said that his life based on values and principles will always remain a source of inspiration for the countrymen. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla also offered floral tributes to Lal Bahadur Shastri ji on his birth anniversary. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will interact with Gram Panchayats and Pani Samitis, that is the Village Water and Sanitation Committees or the VWSC, on Jal Jeevan Mission today via video conferencing. Prime Minister will launch the Jal Jeevan Mission app for improving awareness among stakeholders and for greater transparency and accountability of schemes under the mission. Prime Minister will also launch the Rashtriya Jal Jeevan Kosh, where any individual, institution, corporate or philanthropist, be it in India or abroad, can contribute to help provide tap water connection in every rural household, in schools, in college, in Anganwadi centers, ashramalaya and other public institutions. Nationwide Gram Sabhas on Jal Jeevan Mission will also take place during the day. The Gram Sabhas will discuss planning and management of village water supply systems and also work towards long-term water security. Pani Samitis or water committees play a key role in planning, implementation, management, operation and maintenance of village water supply systems, thereby providing clean tap water to every household on a regular and long-term basis. Out of over 6 lakh villages, Pani Samitis or VWSCs have been constituted in around 3.5 lakh villages. Over 7.1 lakh women have been trained to test the quality of water by using the field test kits. On 15th of August 2019, Prime Minister announced the Jal Jeevan Mission to provide clean tap water to every household. At the time of the launch, only 3.23 crore, that's 17% of the rural households, had tap water supply. In today's episode of Saga of Freedom, we will pay tribute to the messenger of non-violence and the follower of truth, Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhiji was born on the 2nd of October and his birthday is celebrated as Gandhi Jayanthi. Gandhiji is popular as the father of the nation and Bapu, and Gandhiji led the entire country in the Indian independence movement following the path of non-violence. Today is also the birth anniversary of another great personality of India, Lal Bahadur Shastri. Let's take a look.
Mahatma Gandhi, an apostle of non-violence and preacher of truth, was born on 2nd of October 1869 in Gujarat. Gandhiji studied law at the University of Bombay for 1 year, then at the University College London, and was admitted to the Bar of England. He returned to Bombay and practiced law there for a year, then went to South Africa to work for an Indian firm in Natal. In 1906, Gandhiji, for the first time, organized a non-violent resistance against the Transvaal government's Registration Act. He was jailed on many occasions, along with thousands of his supporters.
Back in India, Gandhi became active in the struggle for Indian independence.
सच्चाई का लेकर शस्त्र और अहिंसा का ले अस्त्र.
In 1918, Gandhiji opposed the increasing tax levied by the British during the devastating famine. He was arrested in Champaran in Bihar for organizing civil resistance.
He urged Indians to replace British goods with their own fabrics and goods.
On New Year's Eve, December the 31st, 1929, the Indian National Congress unfurled its flag of independence.
From March 12th to April 6th, 1930, Gandhiji made the famous Salt March to Dandi. The successful campaign led to the reaction of the British government and imprisonment of over 60,000 people for making or selling salt without a tax.
The British opened fire on the unarmed crowd and shot hundreds of demonstrators. Eventually, the British government, represented by Lord Irvin, signed the Gandhi-Irvin Pact in March 1931, agreeing to free all political prisoners.
Gandhiji campaigned to improve the lives of the so-called untouchables. His Quit India campaign led to mass arrests on an unprecedented scale of struggle. He was arrested in Bombay and was held for 2 years.
During his captivity, his wife, Kasturba, passed away, and his secretary, Mahadev Desai, also died.
India won independence in 1947, followed by partition of India. Gandhiji was pained by the clashes that happened after partition. On 30th of January 1948, Gandhiji was assassinated while on his way to a prayer meeting.
The ashes of Mahatma Gandhi were split in portions and sent to all states of India to be scattered in rivers.
Today marks the birth anniversary of another sterling personality of India, Lal Bahadur Shastri. Shastri was born on 2nd of October 1904 in Mughal Sarai. He had his education in Uttar Pradesh. Inspired by the Mahatma's call for students to withdraw from government schools and join the non-cooperation movement, Shastri withdrew from school the next day actively participating in picketing and anti-government demonstrations.
He was soon arrested and jailed, but was then let off as he was still a minor. Among the first students of the new institution, Kashi Vidyapeeth, a nationalist institution, Shastri graduated with a first-class degree in philosophy and ethics in 1925. He was given the title Shastri, meaning scholar.
He was imprisoned several times during the freedom struggle.
आज है 2 अक्टूबर का दिन, आज का दिन है बड़ा महान.
Following India's independence, Shastri Ji became the Minister of Police and Transport in Uttar Pradesh. As the Transport Minister, he was the first to appoint women conductors.
Later, Shastri Ji was made Union Railways Minister in the first cabinet of Republic India in 1952. He also served as the Minister of Commerce and Home Minister.
After the demise of Jawaharlal Nehru, Lal Bahadur Shastri became the second Prime Minister of India. He promoted the White Revolution, a national campaign to increase the production and supply of milk. Underlining the need to boost India's food production, Shastri also promoted the Green Revolution in India in 1965.
Shastri Ji charged the entire nation with the same enthusiasm during the 1965 India-Pakistan War, just the way Gandhi had done during the national movement before independence.
While Gandhi's slogan was "Do or Die," Shastri proclaimed "Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan." Their philosophy was rooted in spirituality. They practiced what they preached.
Well, time now for us to head into a short breather here on the public broadcaster. Lots to look forward to on the other side. Stay tuned with DD India and News on the Hour. We're going to be right back.
With the world's largest COVID vaccination drive, India is leading the way. As the vaccine reaches every corner of the nation, do not forget the mantra, Dawai bhi, Kadai bhi. Let's continue our fight against COVID-19. Vaccination along with social distancing, sanitization and masks.
Mask up, India.
Put your mask on and cover your nose and be safe.
Mask up, India.
Welcome back to News on the Hour. Now taking a look at an update on COVID-19 situation from across the country. India continues to battle the COVID-19 pandemic with timely tracing, tracking, treatment. COVID-19 in this country is managing, or COVID-19 in this country is now under control, and the spread of the deadly virus has hit a speed breaker. India's recovery rate is currently at 97.86%, which is the highest since March 2020. In the last 24 hours, 25,455 patients have recovered. That has now increased the total of recovered patients in India to 3,30,68,599. 24,354 new cases also reported in the last 24 hours. Active cases account for less than 1% of the total cases. Active cases are currently 0.81%. That's the lowest since March 2020. Active case load stands at 2,73,889, which is the lowest in 197 days. Weekly positivity rate remains below 3% for the last 99 days. It's now 1.68%. The daily positivity rate has also remained less than 3% for the last 33 days and is currently at 1.70%. Testing capacity, meanwhile, continues to be expanded or ramped up in the country. In the last 24 hours, as many as 14,29,258 samples being tested in the country. So far, a total of 57 crore 19,94,990 samples being tested across the country for COVID-19. Well, India has been administering doses of COVID vaccines to its population under its nationwide vaccination program. In that, over 89 crore 74 lakh 81,000 vaccine doses being administered across the country. In the last 24 hours, 69 lakh 33,838 vaccine doses administered. Of this, 39 lakh 1,941 people have received their first dose, while 30 lakh 31,897 received their second dose of vaccine. Moving on, India has decided to impose reciprocity of UK nationals arriving in India from the UK. New regulations will come into effect from the 4th of October and will be applicable to all UK nationals arriving from the country. From the 4th of October, all UK nationals arriving in India, irrespective of their vaccination status, will have to undertake the following measures. Pre-departure COVID-19 RT-PCR test within 72 hours before travel, COVID-19 RT-PCR test on arrival at airport, COVID-19 RT-PCR test on 8th day after arrival, mandatory quarantine at home or in destination address for at least 10 days after arrival in India. Authorities in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and the Ministry of Civil Aviation would be taking steps to implement the new measures for people arriving from UK. Ladakh LG R.K. Mathur today unveiled the tallest ever monumental national flag measuring 225 feet by 150 feet in Leh. Army Chief M.M. Narwane was also present on the occasion. The 1,000 kilogram Khadi flag has been prepared by the Khadi dyers and printers of Mumbai, and Army's 57 Engineer Regiment has installed this flag at Leh. A flypast by helicopters of the Indian Air Force was also organized on this occasion.
हमारा देश अपनी आजादी के 75 गौरवपूर्ण वर्ष पूरा कर चीतल हेलीकॉप्टर्स का संचालन कर रहे हैं। लेफ्टिनेंट कर्नल उत्तम आनंद, मेजर जी निरंजन।
Well, addressing the event, LG Mathur said that this flag is a symbol of unity and integration of the country.
महात्मा गांधी जी ने खुद कहा था कि ये देश की एकता का प्रतीक है, देश के लिए ह्यूमिलिटी का प्रतीक है, देश के लिए एक ऐसा चिन्ह है जिसके सहारे पूरा देश उसको एक अपना रिप्रेजेंटेटिव मानकर बलिदान देता है। हमारे वीर जवान चाहे जहां भी लड़ाई हो, कहीं भी हो, इस झंडे के नाम पे लड़ते हैं।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that government's reforms are not only aimed at achieving our economic objective of Atmanirbhar Bharat, but also focused on ease of living. In an interview to a weekly magazine, the Prime Minister said, in our entire reforms journey, we have taken people along. We consider people as partners in the journey of developing India, and hence we are able to deliver better results. The Prime Minister said, as he lauded the healthcare workers and said, in this pandemic, the biggest role of the healthcare and frontline workers. He said the biggest lesson for us from the COVID-19 fight has been that India has an unparalleled ability to unite, find a common purpose, come together, and a tremendous capacity to deliver when a need arises. The Prime Minister also spoke about the recently launched Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission. He said ABDM mission will enhance access to healthcare for the poor, boost innovation, and make treatment seamless across geographies. Talking on farm laws, the Prime Minister said the government has been saying right from the first day that on whichever point there is a disagreement, the government is ready to sit together and discuss those issues. Many meetings have also been held in this regard, but no one till now has come up with a specific point of disagreement that we want this to be changed. Talking about youngsters, Prime Minister said it is important that every youngster gets opportunities, not assistance that keeps them dependent, but the support that makes them self-reliant to fulfill their aspirations with dignity. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin met with Chief of Defense Staff General Bipin Rawat during his first visit to the Pentagon on September 30th. The two leaders exchanged views on priorities for advancing the U.S.-India defense partnership, including through enhanced cooperation in new defense domains such as space, cyber and emerging technologies. Secretary Austin underscored the U.S. commitment to supporting the Indian Armed Forces transition towards greater institutional and integration and operational jointness. They also discussed opportunities for expanding multilateral cooperation with regional partners. This historic meeting highlights the enduring strength of the U.S.-India major defense partnership as the two countries work in concert with like-minded partners to sustain a free and open Indo-Pacific. Well, showcasing India's technical enterprise, the Indian Pavilion opened in Dubai Expo 2020 on Friday. India is one of the largest pavilions in the Expo, encompassing the theme Openness, Opportunities and Growth. In his inaugural speech virtually at the Expo, Prime Minister Modi said the pavilion exhibits vibrancy and diversity of the nation. Giving a clarion call to investors to come and invest in India, the Prime Minister said India is a land of opportunities in various fields and thus offers maximum growth in scale, ambition and outcome.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave an inaugural welcome speech via video conferencing at the opening of the India Pavilion at the Expo 2020 Dubai in the United Emirates on Friday. In his opening remarks, the Prime Minister said that the theme of the Expo 2020, Connecting Minds and Creating the Future, is seen in India's effort to make New India.
The main theme of Expo 2020 is Connecting Minds, Creating the Future. The spirit of this theme is also seen in India's efforts as we move ahead to create a new India.
The Prime Minister also said that the theme of the India Pavilion is openness, opportunities and growth. He said that the vibrancy and diversity of India is reflected in the India Pavilion.
India is famous for its vibrancy and diversity. We have different cultures, languages, cuisines, forms of art, music and dance. This diversity is reflected in our pavilion. Similarly, India is a powerhouse of talent.
The Prime Minister also invited all the potential investors to come and invest in India.
Today's India is one of the most open countries in the world. Open to learning, open to perspectives, open to innovation, open to investment. That is why I invite you to come and invest in our nation.
The Prime Minister talked about the reforms undertaken by the government and said that the reforms will continue.
Over the last 7 years, the government of India has undertaken several reforms to boost economic growth. We will keep doing more to continue this trend.
Earlier, Union Minister for Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal inaugurated the India Pavilion and also addressed the event. The Indian Pavilion at the Expo has gathered rave reviews. It stands out, featuring kinetic facade that is made up of 600 individual colourful blocks. It is developed as a mosaic of rotating panels which represent an India on the move. In the evening, the facade turns into a mesmerizing light and sound show. The first World Fair to be held in the Middle East, Expo 2020 Dubai, opened on Thursday with a lavish ceremony of fireworks, music and messaging about the power of global collaboration for a more sustainable future. Dubai, the region's tourism, trade and business hub, is hoping to boost its economy by attracting 25 million businesses and tourist visits to the World Fair, which has been built from scratch on 4.3 square kilometers of desert. The full expo site has opened its doors to exhibitors from almost 200 countries after being delayed for a year by the pandemic. The Gulf state has relaxed most coronavirus restrictions, but the expo requires face masks to be worn and for visitors over 18 to be vaccinated against or test negative for COVID-19. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, issue of the 18th phase of electoral bonds by the state-run lender State Bank of India in 29 authorized branches across the country began on Friday. Electoral bonds are interest-free banking instruments which can be bought in multiples of 1,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh or 1 crore. They can be purchased by individuals and companies who have to disclose their identity through Know Your Customer norms to SBI, while political parties can encash these bonds within 15 days only in their specified bank accounts. Only those parties which have got 1% of all votes polled in the last Lok Sabha or State Assembly polls are eligible for funding through these bonds. This makes it possible to give political contributions through a legitimate channel with tax-paid funds, while who gave how much to which party remains anonymous. One can purchase these electoral bonds till October 10th. On to some international stories. US President Joe Biden has promised that whatever it took him 6 minutes, 6 days or 6 weeks, he and the Democrats in Congress would reach an agreement on two massive spending bills that norm or form the core of his domestic agenda. Biden has made a surprise visit to Congress a day after it delayed a crucial vote on his $1 trillion infrastructure plan. Part of his Democratic Party refuses to move forward with the plan until Congress signs off a separate $3.5 trillion welfare and climate change bill. Centrists want to downsize the package while liberals push for more funding. President Joe Biden and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi have been trying to reconcile the liberals with the centrists. The infrastructure bill has already cleared the Senate and will go to the president's desk once the House passes the legislation. The bipartisan $1 trillion public works bill, which would apply to routine transportation, broadband, water systems and other projects, enjoy wide support, but progressive Democrats are linking its passage to their more ambitious welfare and climate change bill. Britain will deploy military tanker drivers from Monday to deliver fuel to gas stations, many of which were still dry on Friday after a chaotic week that has seen panic buying, fights at the petrol pumps and drivers hoarding petrol in water bottles. With an acute shortage of truck drivers straining supply chains to breaking point, the government said on Friday that 200 military tanker personnel, 100 of which are drivers, will complete their training over the weekend and start deliveries on Monday. The government has also announced that up to 300 overseas fuel tanker drivers will be able to work in the UK immediately until the end of March. Temporary visas are also being offered to 4,700 food haulage drivers who are able to arrive from late October and leave by 28th of February in 2022. UK has been grappling with a fuel crisis that has caused huge queues outside some petrol stations and forced customers to drive to multiple sites in search of supplies. While the government and retailers say there is enough fuel at UK refineries, a shortage of drivers has slowed the transport of fuel to petrol stations. An update now on the volcanic eruption in Spain. Lava flowed from a newly opened crack in the Cumbre Vieja volcano of La Palma on Friday, carving a different path from the various flows and raising fears of more destruction. A river of red-hot lava snaked downhill from a new fissure which burst open late on Thursday, around 400 meters to the north of the primary eruption site. Multiple vents have opened since the volcano began erupting on September 19, but the Canaries Volcanology Institute described the latest opening as a new focus of eruption. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano, in its first eruption in nearly a year, was filling the crater at its summit with hot red lava and clouding the skies with volcanic smoke. The latest eruption of Hawaii's youngest and most active volcano began on Wednesday afternoon. While the lava presented no immediate threat to populated areas, residents who live downwind of the particular region were warned of a possible exposure to sulfur dioxide and other volcanic gases that can irritate the respiratory system. The eruption was taking place within the confines of the Hawaiian Volcanoes National Park, which remained open to visitors who wished to observe the lava's glow and the pluming smoke from a safe distance. Kilauea's latest eruption took place in December 2020, when a water-filled lake that had formed at the crater evaporated, replaced by a lava lake. Well, Ecuador is planning to pardon up to 2,000 inmates in order to relieve overcrowding at its detention centers after 118 inmates died and a further 79 were injured in the country's worst ever prison riot earlier this week. Ecuador's prison authority director said that the government aimed to prioritize the elderly, women and prisoners with disabilities and terminal illnesses in the wake of the clashes on Tuesday at the Penitenciaria del Litoral in the southern city of Guayaquil. The country's prisons are currently home to some 39,000 inmates. A look at COVID-19 numbers from across the world. As numbers stand, purely so far over 23 crore 50 lakh COVID-19 cases, 21 crore 17 lakh recoveries, 48 lakh 5,000 fatalities across the world. United States 4 crore 44 lakh cases of COVID-19. Death toll now past the number that one looks at, the death toll, especially when it comes to United States, now over 7 lakh deaths there in United States of America. Seven lakh 18,000, the latest number of deaths, more than that, especially in the United States of America due to COVID-19. With COVID-19 pandemic continuing its rage, US drug maker Merck has come up with an experimental tablet that the company says cuts the risk of hospitalization and deaths by 50% for patients with mild or moderate infection. Merck said it would apply for emergency use authorization for the tablet Molnupiravir in the US for the next 2 weeks. The pill was given twice a day to patients recently diagnosed with COVID-19. If authorized, this particular drug would be the first oral antiviral medication for COVID-19. The pill was originally treated or developed to treat influenza. It is designed to introduce errors into the genetic code of the virus, preventing it from spreading in the body.
Should work pretty much the same no matter what the variants are, which of course is another advantage. It gets to the fundamental replication machinery of the virus, which is irrespective of the variant. It's a simple pill. I believe it's 2 pills a day for 5 days, so obviously a lot easier to administer and a lot easier to administer as an outpatient as well. This medicine is independent of getting vaccinated. Whether or not you wind up taking this medicine for whatever reason, you should still get vaccinated because that's the best way to prevent you from getting sick
Director of the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci, welcomed the news that Merck could halve the chances of dying or being hospitalized for those most at risk of contracting severe COVID-19 infections.
The company, when they briefed us last night, had mentioned that they will be submitting their data to the FDA imminently. The data are impressive. There was a 50% diminution. Of importance is that in the placebo group there were 8 deaths, and in the treatment group there were no deaths. That's also very important and very good news. We always hesitate to make any timelines. The FDA will look at the data and in their usual very efficient and effective way will examine the data as quickly as they possibly can, and then it will be taken from there, because once a recommendation is made, then we go through the same process of getting the recommendation for its usage through the CDC.
Well, Cuba has intensified its COVID-19 vaccination program as it aims to fully inoculate 90% of its population against COVID-19 by December. More than 80% of Cuba's 11.3 million people have received at least first shot of a 3-dose immunization regimen, while close to 50% are fully vaccinated. Notably, Cuba missed its early vaccination targets and suffered one of the world's worst COVID-19 outbreaks in July and August. Cuba is already lifting domestic restrictions in heavily vaccinated provinces as it tries to revitalize an economy severely battered by the pandemic. At the stroke of midnight on Friday, vaccinated Belgian ravers returned to the dance floor as the country eased another set of COVID-19 restrictions, reopening nightclubs to those with proof of vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test. Nightclubs in Belgium have been closed for 19 months, but customers are now allowed to return as long as they are able to present a COVID-safe ticket, proving they have been vaccinated or submit to an on-the-spot test. Along with the reopening of clubs in much of Belgium's rules about masking themselves were also loosened on Friday, though not in the capital Brussels, which lags behind neighboring regions in vaccination rates. Chilean families separated from loved ones by travel restrictions for nearly 2 years have reunited with their relatives on Friday after the South American country reopened its borders for vaccinated foreign air travelers. Excited families received their relatives full of joy with flowers and posters at the Santiago airport. Families embraced each other in the arrival halls, some of whom have been separated since the beginning of the pandemic in March 2020. Travelers have to show a negative PCR COVID-19 test taken up to 72 hours before entering Chile, undergo a mandatory 5-day quarantine, have medical travel insurance, and show proof of vaccination. Visitors without vaccines, including children, will only be allowed to enter under strict criteria such as for humanitarian reasons. Borders were closed to visitors in March 2020 when the pandemic first hit, and again in April 2021 when Chile experienced a fierce second wave of the virus. Easing one of the toughest COVID-19 restrictions, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has announced an 18-month ban on Australians travelling abroad to be lifted from next month. The first phase of the plan will focus on citizens and permanent residents being allowed to leave Australia, with further changes expected to permit foreign travellers to enter the country. Reopening the international border for citizens and permanent residents will be linked to the establishment of home quarantine in Australia's 8 states and territories. Since March 2020, only some Australians and others entered the country due to strict rules. Outbound travel is also banned without an exemption. Now on to some international stock market news. Wall Street stocks surged to a higher close, kicking off the final quarter of 2021 in a buying mood, boosted moves basically by positive economic data, progress in the battle against COVID-19, and Washington developments on the potential passage of an infrastructure bill. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 482 points or 1.43% to 34,326 points. The S&P 500 gained 49 points or 1.15% to 4,357 points. The Nasdaq Composite added 118 points or 0.8% at 14,566 points. Of the 11 major sectors in the S&P 500, all but healthcare stocks ended higher. Auto sports, Punjab beat Kolkata by 5 wickets in the Indian Premier League action in Dubai. Punjab kept their play hopes alive with this truly deserving win as Kolkata looked off colour with their fielding efforts. Mayank scored a quick-fire 40 after an early reprieve. KL Rahul anchored the 166-run chase with a 55-ball 67, and Shah Rukh Khan made an unbeaten 22 in 9 deliveries. The result ensured that Kolkata did not break away from the mid-table pack, with only 2 points separating the 4 teams between 4th and 7th. It also confirmed Delhi a spot in the playoffs as they can no longer finish below 4th. So 2 teams in the playoffs, Delhi and Chennai, make it to the playoffs position. Well, now let's take a look at cricket action and the pink ball test match between India and Australia there. And Deepti Sharma and Tanya Bhatia have taken guard for India on the 3rd day of that particular test match. As we speak in Gold Coast, India at this point of time, in that particular test match, they're looking for a first innings big score, 316 for 5. That's what the Indian Eves are. As we speak, 315 for the loss of 5 wickets. The 2 women out there in the middle. At this point of time, Deepti Sharma batting unbeaten on 30 and Tanya Bhatia giving a company on 22. But when one looks at the overall reason why India is in such a comfortable position, Smriti Mandhana's 127-run knock, her maiden 100 that helped India get a good start. All India's top order batsmen have chipped in with useful contributions. Mithali Raj contributing a 30-run knock, Poonam Rawat hitting a 36, Shefali Verma hitting a 31, Yastika Bhatia hitting 19. So India at this point of time in this particular test match there, India on the 3rd day of action, roughly at around, after 126 overs, 318 for the loss of 5 wickets. An independent investigation has found that a system to manipulate the outcome of boxing matches by officials was in place at Rio 2016 Olympics. Professor Richard McLaren, the head of the investigation commissioned by the sports world governing body IBA, has said that the seats have been sown years before. The investigation found there were 2 bouts that caused the system to publicly collapse, including the bantamweight quarterfinal between Kolon and Vladimir Nikitin from Russia. Conlan was the reigning world and European champion at that time, and his defeat led to public outcry after he appeared to win the bout comfortably. More details in this report.
A bout manipulation system existed in boxing at the 2016 Rio Olympics. Richard McLaren, the head of the independent investigation commissioned by the sports world's governing body IBA, said the first of 3 stages of the investigation looked into refereeing and judging at Rio, where controversial decisions in certain bouts made the headlines.
Because the focus was the qualifiers in Rio 2016 and how matches were manipulated in those 2 sets of circumstances, qualifier events for eligibility to compete in the Olympics and then the Olympics itself. And when we do that analysis, we can come up with probably 10 or 11 that are suspicious, and we can confirm that the matches that the media was interested in and talked about at the time in 2016 were manipulated matches, but we can't go further than that at this point.
McLaren said he could not comment on whether the results of manipulated bouts would be overturned, saying that was not up to him to decide as the lead investigator.
If they feel that a bout's been manipulated, then they'll probably take disciplinary action, or they could declare the bout the other way, I suppose. That would depend on the rules, and If they did, then of course results would have to be reallocated. The problem with reallocating results that aren't medal rounds is it has a ripple effect throughout the rest of the competition. So it's very hard to ex post facto, years later, knock out 2 or 3 bouts in, let's say, the second round, because it has ripple effects, which would then change. And how do you deal with that?
Irish boxer Michael Conlan said he felt vindicated by an independent report published that found evidence of corruption and manipulation of bouts at the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympics. One of those two was Conlan's against Russia's Vladimir Nikitin, who was so badly injured despite being declared the winner that he was unable to fight in the semi-final but still collected a bronze medal.
I'm going to be honest, the news to me was a shock. I didn't think, you know, I thought it was all put to bed and it was finished. There was nothing really going to happen, but you know, here we are 5 years later, and you know, probably coming to a final close, which is great. I'm delighted, and I hope that justice will be served. And you know, it shows that my reactions and my actions during the time were just, and you know, hopefully I'll have a bit of indication by the end of this.
However, Conlan added that the fighters who benefited from the corruption should not be penalized. Another Rio fight called into question was the super heavyweight final between Britain's Joe Joyce and France's Tony Yoka, with the latter taking gold. Both are unbeaten as professionals. Sports Desk, DD India.
Some serious trouble that boxing has got into, but then there is a process of getting the house in order, and it's begun slowly and steadily. Well, moving forward with sports, the Indian men's table tennis team comprising Achanta Sharat Kamal, Satyan Ganeshekaran and Harmeet Desai enhanced its reputation with a bronze medal in the Asian Table Tennis Championship in Doha. India had won the men's team bronze at the Asian Games in Jakarta in 2018, and a bronze at the Asian Championship cements their